a choice right now, between fear and love. It's just a rock.
Out of the dark night of ignorance and into the shining light of truth.
Expanding reality.
A population of citizens capable of critical thinking.
We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are.
There's a level of reality where everything dissolves into an ocean of energy.
We empower our experience by insisting on our authenticity.
That's very profound. Very.
This is Crrow777, and I'm happy to be on Expanding Reality.
Welcome to Expanding Reality. I am your host, Brandon Thomas. On this incredibly cool episode, Crrow777 comes back to talk to us about the necessities of mental fortitude in a realm possibly saturated by parasites and lizard turd frequencies. Now also join us for the afterthought, where we go absolutely awesome on the second sun work that he has been doing with the Hydrogen Alpha project he's got going. Guys, it's absolutely incredible. A wonderfully perfect way to support your favorite show. But for now, and without any further ado, let's get to this incredibly cool conversation. Crrow777. Welcoming back to the show, extremely grateful, Crrow777. My friend, it's always great to hang out and speak with you. You and I did a conversation on Legit Bat recently that I'm actually just going to go ahead and link down below just because I love those folks, and that was an awesome conversation. Rose and Jason joined us, and that was amazing. So, how have you been doing, my friend? We've got a lot of cool things to talk about here, but you personally, up top, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on, and I've basically been going full tilt since the 21st, and I think you know why.
It is a wild time, brother. We are going to get so deep into the new solar work that you've been doing. So what have you been feeling lately, like about the energies you've been looking into, about whatever the hell's going on in the realm right now? How are you, like your disposition in conjunction with the work that you've been doing?
I feel great. I feel blessed, to be honest with you. From the time that I accidentally caught the lunar wave to all the other things that I've managed to film, I almost feel like temporary windows are opened up, because there's no other way to explain some of the things that have gone on. For years, I've been searching for the second sun. I talked with Jason on August 20 this year, 24, and I said it's just a matter of time, referring to the second sun. And then on the 21st, I think it happened, as close as I can come to proving it. And it's a special time because, in my view, we have a real opportunity to expand our consciousness. It is my point of view that the light of this world, and probably whatever that other object is, which I'll just refer to as the second sun, since observatories have now called it that, Eric Dollard described our sun as a transformer. So he's a genius, and think about what that means with regard to that other object. Now, so many people are afraid right now because of the fear programming that's gone into the world, and I would give you a different possibility. When we see the chemtrailing and things like that, we know all kinds of things are going on, but part of what that is doing is blocking a lot of the energy from the sun. It is my personal point of view that the light we are getting from the sun now is upping our consciousness as we go into the new era. And change human beings do not like, and change is hyperactive right now, but we are going to create what we walk into. And if you fall for the fear and all the videos that the sun above us is a simulator, you're being led into a fearful state of mind. And our mind and our consciousness proceed and create everything we will do and experience. You should be happy and joyful and looking forward to the energies that are being provided to us to up the humanity game from the perspective of consciousness.
It's from that perspective that we get a deep breath and we get to say, yeah, that actually, as far as resonation goes, that resonates the most. I love this, that we are creating what we're walking into. Of course, right? And you could see it prevalent. It's ubiquitous around us to be in a fear state. You're being constantly reminded around you, or being enticed rather, to go ahead and lock into that state and to hold it and then anchor it and then amplify it. But this is providing us another option. Now, it's fascinating that you say blocking out the sun, because wasn't this a Bill Gates thing? Didn't he want to block out the sun for global warming?
Yeah, they're the enemies of light. If you want to be honest about what the sun is and try to set aside the social engineering where if you honor the sun or appreciate it, you're somehow a heathen sun worshiper that is less in some way, or the derisive tags that have gone on it, then maybe you need to come back and go outside where all truth resides in nature and look up and recognize that is the light of this world. When we have a warm day, there's your source. When we see our gardens growing, there's your source. Without that light, what would this place be? Would there even be life? And so what's happened here is we've been convinced that we should ignore or shun or do any number of things to these very important elements of our existence. And the sun is key in all of this. In almost any spiritual tradition, people refer to the light. Well, the light of this world is the sun. And according to what I have discovered way back 10 years ago, and what I believe I relocated on not only the 6th of June, but the 21st of October, is there is another one. Much like the soliloquy that closes the movie 2010, which is the sequel to the all-important 2001, which socially engineered us to accept the moon landings were real and that the moon is just simply rock and dirt. At the end of 2010, the star, Roy Scheider, informs us that his children will grow up in this new era with 2 suns in the sky.
It's so, I mean, so many questions, Crrow. What does this mean, though? What is this second sun, even in conjunction to a transistor? How would this amplify? Is its appearance actually the amplification of our sun? Has it always been there? Like, is it new? Did it get brought here? What's going on with this thing? Just so many questions.
I wish I have points of view. I have ideas that I currently accept, but those are just my opinions. What I can tell you is it's there and it's real. If I wanted to go back to the old methods that I think are so valuable, like everything in the world can be broken down into body, soul, and spirit, and then you correlate that over to the religion for this part of the world, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, these ideas are ubiquitous because they are true. If I had to associate this idea to the so-called second sun, right now, I think maybe spirit would be the best label for it.
So it's because what I'm thinking here now of is Nibiru and this Planet X and this, dead star allegedly that's supposed to be coming back into our solar system. And right about this time is when it's been predicted to come back. So do you think that this second sun or something is something that's cyclical, meaning that we see it every now and then, and that ancient cultures have referred to it, and then now that it's back, it signifies something, perhaps, the reset or something?
Well, everything we know about the sky clock is cyclical. We wouldn't have ages if they weren't cyclical. And as far as these dreadful stories of Nibiru and the Dark Planet and Planet X, I would ask, because I don't know any better, are those social engineering concepts that have been used to give us a negative idea of this thing that's going to become knowable, not something they can't cover up anymore, to get you to go negatively on the very thing that may be allowing our consciousness to expand? That's what I would ask.
It's like you're already, it's like they give you a coloring book and they're coloring it in for you. They're saying, hey, the second thing, it's going to be horrible and there's going to be another one and it's going to be bad. So you're automatically creating what you're walking into with it. And maybe that does alter the relationship of the realm, but like you, seeing it in a more positive light, maybe literally the positive light that it needs to be beneficial for us. It's a co-collective process here.
There's a big test afoot, and I view it as you're going to choose which path you're taking now. And it's going to be more extreme. You always do this all the way through your life. If you turn right one day, clearly you'll be at a different place at the end of that day than if you turned left. but on the, I don't know, cosmic scale, that sounds kind of cheesy, but we're choosing our path forward. And it is my point of view that there is on offer an elevated, higher minded path or a lower minded kind of everything based in technology, bereft of the truths that reside in nature. It's the old idea that I have put forward that the people who run this show, if they're all people, they can't claim godship over nature because they can't control it, and they can't make a fish, they can't make an oak tree from scratch. So what they're doing is making a parallel technical reality that they can claim godship over. And if you go for that path, and they're going to claim ownership, and if you get addicted to their tools, which we've already done. How do we live without a car these days and a grocery store? These are their system. These are the things that they hold sway over and that they're using to usher in what's coming. When things like 2020 happen and they lock down the world, nobody had to do it, but damn near everyone did do it. And that is choosing, for me, from my personal path, that is choosing the wrong path. If we consider what happens when we die, are you of a mind that lights out, it's all over? Or are you of a mind that you can't destroy energy, and whatever it is at the base of you that makes you, that goes on from here? That's what I accept as true. So if I am to consider the life I will, the amount of time I will spend in this lifetime, it is less than a drop in the bucket. It implies that I've been here for Lord knows how long, or at least the energy that makes me, and that I will go on from here. And when I look at it in that way, I can start to realize how important these decisions are for me now, because I have infinity in front of me. And if I'm going to be around for a super duper long time, I truly want to head in a direction of compassion and love, and not be in a hyper material place like I am now, where hatred and fear are being pushed forward as the prevalent dominant emotions.
Do you think that's part of what we're learning here, though, by being bombarded in an environment that's so saturated by it, and so it seems unsurmountable in so many ways, which we then find ways of surmounting, right? And it's all mental. It comes back to you. And it feels like if this is a ride of sorts, or that we're on some sort of God's in training education type of a thing, perhaps, then that would be a great, trial by fire type of a initiation to put your crew through, is to let them run through a gauntlet of fear and scarcity. And not only that, in a realm of absolute paradox, to where you can follow truths to multiple ends. And it's a fascinating realm in which we exist. But again, I mean, do you think that that could be just part of like a gnarly SEALs type training on the other side, whatever that means?
I think that's exactly what it is. My friend Fortune says something very similar to that. This is a classroom. It's hardcore. It's very, very fast and in your face. And that's how he views it. And I view it that way too. And if we want to be honest and we look at our lifetime, am I the person I was when I was 10? No, I'm really not. Am I the person that I was when I was 20? No, I'm really not. And when I begin to look at that, I know people in my life who have adopted spiritual ideas and lifetime ideas that they've never really changed over the 30, 40 years that I've known them. And this all came to a head for me when I was filming the moon years ago, decade ago. And there was a tree that I took a picture of one of the early times I set up my telescope next to my telescope. And for some reason, I'd taken a picture years later, 5 or 6 years later, and the tree, I noticed, everything's pretty much the same, but that tree had gotten bigger. And that's when it came home to me that the tree was telling me the truth. The tree had constantly changed and grown and adopted and not been stagnant. And so I decided for myself that I would take that thing that I had learned and encompass my life with the idea that all I do is constantly update. And all these things that I hold on to now, I will throw them out the window at a moment's notice when I experience something else that lets me know I can go further now, or know something else which seems more acceptable at that time. constantly trying to grow instead of being stagnant.
And I've described this, growing is exactly the way that you call this, as well as there's some folks who subscribe to the idea that this is pure ascension and that you're going up and it's all wonderful and just beautiful the entire time. And really it is growth. It's exactly what you said. That tree made it that long and grew that much and changed that much because it weathered storms. It weathered, squirrels pooping on it and stuff. It little kids throwing baseballs at it and stuff. There's a process, again, of sort of try by fire here that you survive by the trials here. It's not death by 1,000 cuts. It's in the same way that martial artists will sit there and just punch a bucket of rice over and over and over again to create these microfractures on their hand, because it then builds back stronger. And so it's exactly what you said, this small progress over time. We just released episode 300. That's small progress over time. That's just not saying no and just showing up for it, right? And so when you do this to positive ends, it's fascinating rather than fear-based ends. And this is why we're much more solutions-based like you here. Yes, let's look at what's going on, but not stay there, man. That's a whirlpool that we can kick around in for a little bit, but I'm way more like you. What's next? What's moving forward? What's my relationship to what I'm giving back to this place? And, it doesn't matter the resistance in tow. It's just part of it. I've described it as being pissed at the ocean. It's like, well, this place is an ocean. It's an angry ocean. You just got to be a better surfer, So just learn how to surf a little bit better. It's okay.
Well, my friend, well, I have a few friends that I consider to be much more spiritually adept than I will probably achieve in this lifetime. And they are of a mind that we volunteered to do this, that we just can't remember. Couple of them are of a mind that we all are here because we didn't get along so well. What other realm we were in, those ideas have been put forward to me. And when you look at we're here, why do we have races and languages? And, some people say, well, of course, the Bible tells you that. But what the Bible doesn't tell you is the nuts and bolts, right? It's more broad strokes, and they are spiritual parables, all kinds of things, hidden meanings, levels of meaning, maybe. And plus, these have all been edited. But when you consider all the different races and everything that's here, how did all that happen? And we've never been told. But if it's true that we volunteer to be here, then I guess it really is a learning experience. And if it's true that we were kind of outcast wherever we were, that starts to explain why there's so much upheaval in this place we are all the time. I don't know. I'm not at that level.
I love it though, because we're talking about it. This is it. This is figuring it out. It's both of us going, we don't know, but what do you think about this kind of a thing? And I don't disagree with you. This almost feels like a realm where we're all just sort of in an avatar, and the true essence of us is tapped into it. Very analogous to the player games that they've got now with these entire World of Wars and things like that. And that element is what it feels like, because then that would sort of, you could get a greater grip on why you see such a lack of empathy, and you see people as inhuman, like they're fucking monsters from our perspective, if what they're saying that they're doing is true. And then from that perspective, you sort of look at it like, well, is there like a lizard turd, air quotes, tapped into that avatar and really driving that thing around? And could this be what's, responsible for NPCs and this sort of like group hive mind type behavior? And then the vril in the eye and these sort of ideas, is it an apprehendable vessel in which we occupy? And then you think about spirit possession and walk-ins and all of these things that physically make you feel like you don't really have much control. But again, that's an interesting mind fuck to fuck with in this realm anyway, is just to navigate the realm feeling like that you could be bombarded at any time or being told that, and then getting over the feeling of that. Like that's a huge thing. And programming comes into that a ton with this sort of daddy figure that's always watching you, especially from the religions and then the government as well. It's a mind fuck we're in, Crow. So to continue to show up is what's fascinating. And I'm so grateful for the people that we call family, is just to continue to, yeah, man, we've got stuff. There's health, there's life, there's things going on that's crazy, but you and I showed up for this conversation, and people get a great deal out of this, and it changes their lives. And that's what this is all about. It's ignoring all that nonsense and saying, no, it doesn't apply to me. It's being alchemized by us in this way. And that's our gift to this place.
This is what you're talking about is why I formulated the law of crossroad for myself. Because it's easy to get into just, this is what I do every day. We're kind of creatures of habit. And we miss a lot when we go into that auto mode. But in the law of crossroads, when you recognize that information can be used in a way to completely steer your perception and everything else, because if you get it and you don't act, then what has just happened there? And if you decide not to take any action, then even that is kind of like surrendering your body to the tide, whatever comes next. And so the decisions we make here are important. Consider the shots, right? You didn't have to take that, but I heard from endless people I had to. Well, no, you didn't, but it was not a joke. You're going to lose your job. You're going to be, all this pressure and threatening realities were put in front of you, many of which dissipated for the people that held their ground. But think about how lives were changed depending on which way they went there. And this is an extreme version of dealing with information and being drugged to the crossroads.
When we talk about the elements and forces and principalities and things like that here, what are your thoughts on their role and their relationship to us? To, I guess, add a little to it would be to say that like the Archons or these Ascons or something, is it a part of this realm? Are they sort of like janitors and motivators here? Or is there like a parasitic infestation that really needs to be rid?
I think it's pretty clear that what we're seeing is unhelpful. I think it's pretty clear that we're being blamed for the decimation of environments, which we have very little to do with. We don't get to choose what we drive or what powers it. It's really the military industrial complex and the major corporations who are having the effects that matter. And how many people lost their lives as a result of what we just saw? So I think it's clear that there's negative intent, and probably, or maybe in every era shift, there's a push and a pull, light and dark. We have to have both here. Maybe the dark has an upper hand right now for this particular one, but the decisions that we make are exactly this. The problem for them is that we were granted free will. The problem for us is we never seem to remember that we have free will. And so what happens is we get fooled, coerced, threatened into doing things that are absolutely not in our best interest. In some cases, it could shorten or end your life, as we just saw. And so if we keep in mind that we have been given the grandest of gifts that can be given, that being the divine spark of life and the free will and rights that come with it, that is what is constantly being bandied about, messed with, tampered with, socially engineered to try to get you to take actions with your free will that you would not have otherwise taken, fear being one of the main tools. But if you recognize that you absolutely have free will, the only things you really have to do is breathe and eat and go to the bathroom at the end of the day. That is the truth. Now, will all these things happen if you don't do certain things? Well, taxes is a good example. They're not legal. You don't really have to pay them. But what happens if you don't? This is the manipulation of your free will. Now, a person who recognizes the free will in that situation and goes to town learning about it and how to deal with it, I know of a number of people who have walked away from that particular, whatever you want to call it, the maze that puts you on this course to do what they want. So that's what I would add. Yeah, are there dark seeds? I think that's self-evident at this point, but where does the problem lie? The problem lies that we don't seem to be able to remember very well that we have free will.
What do you think about that idea that it's Satan's season? You recognize that there's absolutely a duality or a push and pull, cause and effect. That would make sense in a realm, but it does seem to be in an unfair level here. I love the way you put that. That's brilliant. So do you think that though, possibly, and you kind of already covered this, but this in the Bible is talked about as Satan's little season, right? Where God, for some damn reason, just lets him sort of off the chain and lets him run around for a little bit. And what we see with the architecture of whatever civilization came before this, whatever reset or anything that may have occurred there, it seems that perhaps that could be what would be referred to in the Bible, if true, as that golden year, after the tribulation and all of that. Like, it's long since been past, everything's over and done, and then this would then again be that little season to where energetically you may just refer to it as unhelpful, an unhelpful amount of that energy. But, then do you think that that's possibly what this is, or this, bottom of the Yuga cycle, to where it's that lowest dip before we start heading back up energetically, vibrationally, all of that?
I think that's true. I accept the Yuga cycles. What's that old song? Devil inside, devil inside. Every single one of us, the devil inside. Go to the movie that I've kind of covered and may do an episode later called Revolver. It's a little more violent than I care for, but what is put on the table before you, if you get the version that was not edited down by 15 minutes for release in this country, you will get all these psychiatrists telling you a very, very important thing. And that is related to your free will. How is it that your mind is constantly coming up with things that you don't seem to be generating? Dude. Doesn't that have to do with free will? For a person who grabs onto their free will and says, wait a minute, those are not my thoughts. These are not my ideas. I am a compassionate, loving person. I'm not going to be bandied into, treating someone badly here to defend my ego. And there's the key word there. Let go of my ego. Get it? This is part and parcel of each of us. And to me, the devil that gets bandied about, we're the people who act out the horror show. I've never seen a guy with a cloven hoof show up on a battlefield. What I have seen is young people with weapons on a battlefield. So there it is. Go watch Revolver and think very carefully about what has just been put in front of you, and consider why the hell did they edit it down for release in this country? Because it pulled the curtain a little too high. You could start to see the kneecaps of the man behind the curtain with what they have shown you, and we are back to free will. One of the biggest problems in my life is paying attention all the time. I didn't realize that I once read years ago in a Buddhist thing that my mind is like boiling water. And until I control it and take control of it, never will it become calm, the surface. It will just remain. It's like they describe it as a mad monkey in a tree, just going crazy. And so I tested it. And I read that on average, every time you take a breath, you're thinking about something different. I take a breath, I'm thinking about hot dogs. I take a breath, I'm thinking about trains. I take a breath, I'm thinking about my bank account. I take a breath, and I tested it, it's freaking true. Yeah. And I was stunned. I realized I have no freaking control of my own damn mind. And what was worse, it was around the time when I was noticing I was getting songs stuck in my head.
Oh, yeah.
And so I didn't turn. Sometimes I would get this song in my head and I'd think, when's even the last time I heard this song? I didn't turn this on. And what's worse, I can't turn it off. And so I set about saying to myself, is this my freaking mind or is it not my mind? And after about a month, I got to the point where with effort, I could turn it off. The frustrating part was as soon as I quit paying attention that I had turned it off, it came right back. And then I realized there's something going on here. We're going to call it in the West related to our ego. In other places, spiritually, they're going to refer to it as the devil. In some places, they're going to refer to it as the other, whatever the hell you want to call it. Maybe Julius Caesar's quote, your enemy will hide in the very last place you would ever think to look. There it is. And so eventually I got to the point where I could turn off the music. And then I got to the point where, weirdly enough, the music didn't start. Well, why? Well, I realized I'd taken a little bit of control I didn't have. So my problem is now that I'm all hoity-toity and I think I've got control and I can turn off the music. And by the way, the music's not even starting anymore. I have really mastered something here. And yet there I am walking down to the beach, not paying attention, looking at the birds and the trees, and I realize I'm thinking about some grandiose nonsense that is clearly related to my ego of how I could be a hero, or some bizarre thing where there's a car accident and I save everybody. It's like, where is this coming from? But the rule is that I'm not in control, and that I was not paying attention just for those few seconds. And look, I'm already back to painting fantastic nonsense in my head. And then I started recognizing that almost every time I have negative thoughts, it's to protect my ego, and they are thoughts that urge me to put someone in their place, thoughts that urge me to say something nasty to someone because how dare they? And those are not my thoughts. And so what I do now is, when I recognize that I'm having those thoughts, I inform the base of my consciousness that those are not my thoughts, that I believe in compassion, the truths in nature. I believe in love. I believe wholeheartedly in the golden rule. And what those thoughts are urging me to do is to violate the golden rule, because they want me to treat someone else how I would not like to be treated. And there is the root of the mechanism that is being leveraged against the entire world in spades right now for whatever reason.
Just brilliant, dude. Just brilliant. It's making me think of a recent conversation I had with a young man named Devin Winter. This is one of the most intelligent. If you want to talk about Starseeder, the kid's tapped into something, this is one of those. And he's a 23-year-old self-taught theoretical physicist that created a Minecraft representation of how to 3D navigate through multiple dimensions and time and stuff. It's just, and the kid's got the math for it, but he did this for us, you know? And so he's talking about this realm or this place. And when we talk about filtering consciousness down in densities, which is just an interesting idea, whether we subscribe to it or not, filtering consciousness down in densities to experience something or to bring something back with some knowledge, some wisdom. But through that process, the realm in which we're entering, literally, if you could picture a dome over our realm, right? In that dome, the firmament itself, embedded in that, is these Archons, right? And so this idea of these, I like to call them motivators. I really like to say that something's directing us to make better decisions, as you exactly say. And with that concept, then pure light filters through. Pure, tainted source is what's coming in, but it's filtered through those Archons. And what they do, their job is to steer you and motivate you in ways very specific to your soul's contract. And this is why things pop in your head, like what you said. Oh, I'm a great hero. I can this and that.
There it is.
This is the thing, right? And so that's that other, I think, that we're engaged in conversation with. So
Yep.
How did you manage this? What is your relationship with the Archons? And do you feel that it is beneficial, or would you just rather it not be there?
To be a higher conscious individual, it is my point of view that you have to master your mind. You have to take back control. And it's like a muscle. If you don't use it, it atrophies. If you don't walk for a long time, guess what? You're not going to be able to just stand up and walk. You have to work at it. And what I noticed about my mind was it knows what I value the most, and it knows the dang buttons to push. It knows for a fact that one of the highest things that I think is important in this world is saving the life of another, saving a life. And that's where all these bizarre daytime fantasies come, where you're walking somewhere and all of a sudden you're recognizing in your mind that some terrible thing has happened, and you're imagining yourself being the hero of that event, saving a life, or these types of things. It's not the same as what goes on in dreams, by the way. This is why it is so important to value all living beings and not get trapped into, I'm a Christian, so clearly all the Buddhists are wrong. That is the biggest trap, one of the biggest traps that has ever been laid, because you can learn from them in the same way they can learn from us. And one of the examples I'd like to put forward is a brand new monk. That brand new monk who's in training, what do? They count their steps, they count their breaths all day long. Why are they doing that? Well, because of what you and I have been talking about, they have to control their mind so that they can go into the mind sciences, learn how to meditate, and get into a higher state of consciousness, headed eventually to what has been called enlightenment, heaven, whatever spiritual tradition you are familiar with, the highest state for human consciousness. Now, this is based on a truth that I hold near and dear and I never forget. There is only a very thin sliver of reality in this illusion that we call this realm. And people struggle with this because they decide it's an illusion and they take it too far. If you jump off a cliff in this illusion, guess what? You're going to get hurt or lose your life. So don't confuse the illusion with that. But the only reality you can ever hope to experience is this second now. And in the time I put the W on the end of now, it had already passed. If I want to talk about yesterday, it does not exist. And so much of our thoughts are tied up in that non-existent time period, if that's the right way. Tomorrow hasn't even been created yet. It does not exist. The only moment of reality you can ever hope to achieve in this 3D material reality is the second now, and it's already gone. Now, when you go to look at the novice monk and he's counting his breaths and he's counting his footsteps, he is doing exactly that, trying to get his moment into the now, the only reality. And sadly, when I began to comprehend any of this, I had to also accept that I have spent 90-something% of my life living in fantasy, because I am concerned with tomorrow, yesterday, and 5 minutes from now and 2 seconds ago. I live a fantasy-based reality using my free will, my own choice to do that with unhelpful urgings from the other that knows exactly what my mind is up to and exactly what I hold near and dear.
But it led you to this conclusion. It led you to this understanding. Like, you were able to see the game from within the game. That's incredible, dude, because that's where all the power lies, right? That's where the game that you've been playing blindfolded, you just take the thing off and go, oh, this is how it's played. These are the turrets. Got it. It's a much different reality at that point. Now, simple and easy are two very different things, and I get that completely. Same with you. A couple years ago, I created something that I called the Thought Ninja. This thing was just gifted to me, so it's amazing that you were talking monks practice with this. What mine was just Thought Ninja. It had a badass katana. All he said was, hi. That was it. He was an energetic bouncer for my thoughts, my mental temple, as it were. And it was under new management. And anything that came in at a lower vibrational level, these things in which you're talking about, these intrusives, these loops, these things that would then lead to fear spirals, things like that, dude, cut him out. And in a dramatic way that was visualized in my mind for me, theatrically, cartoon style, whatever, comic, whatever I wanted it to be, to where it was awesome. And it really changed things. And what this made me most aware of was exactly what you're talking about, is not only are they not mine, I don't want them. So let me ask you this then, in comparison to this, what's with the Gwen towers and things like this? They're amplifying that guy, it seems, or are they adding new messages? Like, what is the whole, or is it just a psyop to make you think something's there to scare the shit out of you?
What do you mean specifically about the Gwen towers?
Allegedly, they can, the Gwen towers, these, sigil-looking 5G and things like this, can beam sky-to-skull technology into your head and make you think things and give you depressive thoughts, biochemically alter you by bombarding you with certain frequencies, is allegedly the deal here. And it also ties into your cell phone, so they can sort of triangulate and keep it on you, and no one else feels the thing but you. It's a very directed energy, very personal, sort of gaslighting, if you will. And so when it comes to this sort of technology and how we are very personally affected by it due to the data skimming and all of this forever, how do you think that this plays into that?
This is a very important thing you're coming up with, and I will relate it to a thing that happens to all of us without our permission, and that is data collection. Who owns your image? Who owns your name? Who owns all the stuff that you do that becomes data? Well, I took an interest in this, and I started hiring different services to stop the data collection, to notify the brokers, and I have contacted places to tell them, And every time I contacted a major data broker of any kind and told them, I own all my content and you do not have permission, they've always acknowledged it right away and said, okay, which tells me they know. It's like hiding and hitting someone, and you keep getting hit, but you can't tell where it is. It's not that bad. It's annoying, so you never do anything about it. But when I did that, the big recognition was these institutions know damn well that this game of theirs is over as soon as people stand up and claim it. And then I started thinking, you know what? I'm going to copyright my image, my DNA, everything, and start noting. But anyhow, to get back to the point, what you're talking about is an attack on you. It is critically important from my point of view on the path that I have chosen to pursue to inform, for lack of better words, the universe, your intention. I do not accept those beams. I do not accept those chemtrails. I do not accept bad medicine and poisons being shot into me. I will have no part of it, and I demand that you cease and desist. All the time, I reiterate this so that I will never forget. And you've got to choose your piece of ground. Very important, because once you've done it, then you have a defensive point where you can go forward. Or maybe that's a bad way to say it. You have a piece of ground that is yours that you can maintain under you. And when you do this, you're also informing the universe that someone who's doing something to you, you've informed them that you have God-given rights and they are violating them. So what will be the result of that? People always wonder, if it's true that you do things and if you do bad things, those come back to you, how in the heck are the people at the top getting around this? Well, they've got all kinds of tricky things, but most of it is based on they coerce you to do the wrong thing. Sure, give me that shot. Let me roll up my sleeve for you here. Sure, let me join the army. Oh, the Iraqis are our enemy? Give me a bullet. I'll kill some Iraqis for you. I'll forget that they're human beings. This is the kind of thing that goes on in this realm. So when you inform to claim your God-given rights, give thanks for the divine spark of life, give thanks for the free will, and claim all of that and tell everything else, knock it off. I've claimed my rights here. I'm not down with what you're doing. Think of what would happen if everybody everywhere did that one day. If it is true our mind precedes all, that would be a turning point instantaneously, I imagine. And the problem with what we're talking about is we are beset on all sides from the moment we are born so that we don't have these thoughts, so we don't have the time, because your rent is due. By the way, the DMV's on you. Guess what? IRS is threatening you. Guess what? You got arrested yesterday. Guess what? You're addicted to something. I'm on and on and it goes, beset on all sides to simply do one thing, to ensure that you never recognize that the only true moment is now, and that the majority of your life you're living in fantasy, and in fantasy you are very easily steered and manipulated.
Man, what do you think about that we haven't been born yet? And we're still sort of in utero at some stage. It feels like that we're sort of consuming the nutrients we're bombarded around us, and that this is sort of a distillation process that is revealing a lot of interesting things. We look around, we see sort of an automated system built within this realm that steers a narrative and keeps you in a pocket of this isolation of which you have to mentally break out of, or you get the opportunity to prove your worth at life for the next phase by breaking out of. You know, because when we talk about these intrusive thoughts and things, I think about some 80% of the population allegedly that doesn't have an internal dialogue. Have you heard about this?
No.
There's some 80% of folks running around out there, which would maybe be a similar relevant number to the air quotes sheeple or the automated system that seems to be running here, that does not hear voices in their head. They have no internal
How do you
monologue.
prove that, though? How is that demonstrated?
People, and the way that it's been talked about, and there have been studies done on this, is that people were saying, oh, well, you hear voices in your head because of a common conversation happening between two people. And then eventually it got to this big thing to where there started to be a division of certain people. It's about like the percentage of left-handed versus right-handed people that do not have a damn internal dialogue. And so that then calls into question the NPC thing, or are they even being tested, if you want to say that, in the same way as we are, or are they part of the testing for us?
So I see a problem instantly in because when you just communicated that to me, you said voices. Maybe it should be, is there communication going on in your head?
They say internal monologue is what they say. Yeah.
So so most people would interpret that to say that there's some announcer in my head that I could hear. And I could easily see someone who experiences just what I do every day saying no to that because they don't hear a voice of some kind. You see, the problem with claiming that doesn't happen is when you decide that you're going to go to the refrigerator and make a sandwich, what has prompted that? Was there some dialogue that happened?
When you get your, let's say, attacks, do they come in the form of sentences, sort of like you're going to kill yourself today, like things like that, to where they're complete thought forms, where I think that that's what we're talking about as far as dialogue goes, especially like if you're reading to yourself in your head or something like this, and you have an internal monologue that you're able to sort of keep going in, you know, in a Morgan Freeman voice if you choose. But I think that it more has to do with complete sentence type ideals being communicated in a very auditory, even if it's sort of a clairaudient type of a way, to where you don't hear it, but it's in such a form to where you could articulate it and read it out.
That fits me better, clairaudient. See, I have a movie running that has a soundtrack I can't hear, but the communication is every bit as knowable as if someone said a sentence to me. I can't hear it. I can't break it down to say, did he just say it? But I know what was said. There's also a movie running. And the problem for me is I don't see the pictures, but the movie is running. So I did things like, is it in color? Is it in black and white? I don't know, because the movie's running and I can experience the movie, but I can't see the movie. It's very strange when you begin to dial it in. So my only question would be, is there a better way to ask that question that might get some people to consider it differently? Because it's very hard for me to consider, you know, that would be the whole NPC thing, wouldn't it? It's just like a drone. What, they got a dial tone all day? Well, when they go to get their peanut butter and jelly, was it just dial tone? How did they know to go get the peanut butter and jelly?
Yeah, it's just like a squirrel. Just
but
who
am I? I mean, maybe it is like that. In this era, there are going to be some astonishing beings that come, and we started to see it back in the 90s. They called them Indigo Child. And it's all life forms. I just said it last night. I have seen, and I'm not even kidding, a number of, I think they're bulldogs, grab a skateboard and go ride a bull in the way a skateboard is used. If that freaking bulldog did that in 1970, it would have been the most famous animal of all time. That's a dog.
That would have taken the spotlight off of the water skiing squirrels they had at the time.
I'm just saying, we're all experiencing this. I mean, it's even getting to the point where it looks like some dogs are trying to form words. It's hard to see, but I mean, it's kind of at that point. Goats are the strangest thing, because it always looks like they're absolutely trying to talk, but they can't. And I always feel so sorry for them, because it looks just like the ultimate frustration. And it reminds me of the parable that is told in the beginning of one of my favorite movies, because of the content that is communicated to us, Baby Buddha Little Buddha with Keanu Reeves. In the beginning, they tell the parable of the goat sacrifice. And there is some deep potentialities buried in that, but I'm kind of pulling us off track here.
No, it's like also when they turn people into pigs and things like this into movies. I forget, there's a movie I'm thinking of, and some audience members yelling at right now, but they turn this grown-ass man
Spirited Away. Is it animation?
It wasn't. It was like, it was not. It was live, but it was older, like from the 80s or something, to where they really went for it on the special props and things like this. But they turned this thing into a pig, and now he can't communicate, right? Now, the whole time they were running around, and eventually they figured out it was their friend, but that's terrifying, right? To think that you could be turned into a toad or something, and then, you know, what we did to toads as kids, as poor things.
Go check out the parable in the beginning of Little Buddha that has to do with the goat. A high priest or someone is sacrificing the goat. And that movie is important because it shares a point of view that most of the part of the world I grew up in was not really made privy to. And the ideas that are in that go back a really, really long way. And the problem that we have now is that religion has been misused. To me, a true spiritual endeavor means you accept other people. Doesn't matter if they have a different spiritual path. To me, front and center is the golden rule. I struggle every moment of my life because I'm a human being, and I know I react sometimes and look back a short while later going, what was I thinking? That's no way to conduct yourself. These types of ideas, the golden rule really encapsulates it. Like, why would you ever treat someone in a way that you wouldn't want to be treated? And it's because of your ego. Well, they hurt me. They deserve it. Well, it's a whole different ball game if you begin to do the challenging things that help you get beyond the limitations. Like, imagine yourself going up to the person you like least in this world and hugging them and wishing them all the best and meaning it. And meaning it. And when you start to do this, you begin to realize how truly difficult it is to break the habits that we've been steered into forming with our free will. And once you can do that, it really does change, I think, how you act. But it never ends. I know darn well tomorrow there will probably be a position where the other says, flip that person off, tell them to go to hell. It's these kinds of things. And, it's like any other so-called habit. Once you get used to doing a better job, you do a better job. And this is what's critical, because right now people can't communicate. Social engineering frickin' works like a dream, and it's statistically proven to work. And when you know that, then you shouldn't doubt that 98.5% is very likely that this social engineering, whatever it is, because they've already run models, they already know that the chance is good. But you want to know the strange thing about human consciousness? Is it could be 99.999, and that 1.0000, whatever one possibility, that can happen.
This does seem to be a realm of fuck around and find out, if you will, because it doesn't seem that we get any sort of advanced knowledge ahead of time. It's sort of, you got to touch the plate to see it's hot. You got to make this decision to feel bad about it later. You've got to, and it's nuanced, right? Because you may then make another decision you knew better, maybe in a different way, but then there's more nuance to that. And there's layers and layers and layers. And this is where it gets challenging with the idea that this is a school. Inevitability learning happens here, but learning happens in a prison. You're going to grow over linear time. That's how change is discovered, right? And so whenever you look at it then from a perspective of school, would you rather remember lifetime to lifetime and have those to recall on, or are you happy with the setup if this is the case that you forget every time you incarnate?
It's so much to consider. It's so much to consider. And what I find is it helps to break it down to simple, manageable parts. So for me, one of those simplifications would be employ the golden rule. And I do mantras in my head all the time. And one line in a mantra that I create where it'll have numerical and geometrical balances, I form it in my mind, because then it's a real thing that I built in my mind. And I can go into my mental closet and pull it out and look, it's got this many sides or this many syllables, or all the words add up to this number that I crafted. So now it's a real thing. And to hold and value the golden rule, the most basic thing. And then you get to a point where you realize you've blown it. And so then you reshape it to the next time something I don't like happens to me, be certain to employ the golden rule. This person just wronged me, but how can I put this? Maybe in a logical way. If I see a fire and I don't like the fire because it's burning something that I don't want to be burned, how do I react? Do I pour water on it or do I pour gasoline on it? Well, in the real world, if something violent is happening and I choose to react violently, then in fact, I'm pouring gasoline on the fire because I didn't like the violence. So I added more violence. And that's a hard thing to get by because the human mind will automatically try to defend that thought process and say, yeah, but he's trying to hurt you or hurt someone. They'll come at all these angles, which make it less possible for you to consider what it truly means to add violence to violence. And so these are the real struggles. And to boil it down to simply, the golden rule is important because I know how I want to be treated. And logically, I would know that everyone else has a certain way they want to be treated. So logically, I know that it is acceptable and proper and probably beneficial to always try to treat others how I would want them to treat me. Because much of what's going on is the opposite of that. And the proof is people can't communicate anymore. They have all been socially engineered from watching news or other things that if you don't believe what I believe, then we can't be friends. It's almost that abrupt right now. All the people who I talk to constantly commiserating on how they can't communicate with anyone. And it's over these ridiculous things like Trump or something else, where these are constructs. You didn't have anything to do with Trump coming into power. And by the way, if he's the next president, you will have nothing to do with whether or not he's seated, because some other place called the Electoral College does that. But we choose to forget that that is demonstrably true. And this is how the free will manipulation game goes.
All the ways to find Crrow777, as well as the first episodes that he was on and the legit back conversation we had. And of course, your 2016 video with the Second Son discovery is going to be located down in the show description. Check that out, as well as the free transcript, which we host for you over on Patreon. Now, Crow, we always like to invite our guests here before we close the free part of the show with a what gets you out of bed every morning. The world's going nuts, man, in an interesting way. But you seem to have this incredibly cool disposition to keep moving forward. So share that with us before we roll.
I have logically worked out that I accept that when I die, it's not just lights out. And when I accepted that, I was forced to recognize that the amount of time I will spend in this lifetime is less than a drop in the bucket. And when I realized that, it made the things I don't like about this place more bearable, but it underscored the need for me to decide what is important to me to do here. Most times, like, I'll speak from the male perspective because I can't speak from the female perspective. Most men that I know, they get to midlife and they take stock. What have I done? Have I done anything? Is there a legacy? Have I done anything that mattered? These kinds of ideas. Well, when I looked at it, I decided the thing that was most important to me was to offer ways opposing what I don't like, what I see that I don't like, the darkness, the hatred, the fear. And so I decided that my mission would be to try to measurably, by the time I leave here, have contributed something beneficial and positive to hopefully millions and millions of minds. That's my goal. Even if I never come close, that's my extravagant goal. And that's what does it for me.
I want to take a moment here and thank that incredible mental samurai for coming by and enlightening us further and encouraging us to look at this place a little bit differently and have more confidence in our discernment. So thank you, Crow. You're a breath of fresh air, and we are grateful to share the realm with you at this time. Now, Crrow777radio.com, as well as his other appearances on the show, the other links and things like that will be located down in the description. Make sure that you check the link for the expansive afterthoughts that we do for shows like this. And guys, in this particular one, we go into his hydrogen alpha scope range that he is checking out his Second Son in, and we do share photos of said Second Son and go all over it. It's absolutely incredible. So support your favorite show down in the link down there, as well as catch up on all the other things that we are doing extra and bonus. And thank you so much in advance for doing that. Now, before we let you run off here, just a reminder to go out into this incredibly wild realm as we observe reality and do our own science about it, and be nice to everybody that you come across. You may as well open doors and shit like that and treat them as smile cues when you do so. Also, pick up a piece of litter you see it blown around the realm there. Get out of the left-hand lane, of course, if you've got somebody behind you wanting to pass. But above all, and anything else, guys, go out into this wild-ass place we call home for the time being and just be good to one another. Thank you so much for watching, listening, subscribing, doing all the cool things. We'll see you next time.